Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Jonny Pardo. And today I welcome Inna, and I'm looking forward to the conversation today. We're going to be talking about energy medicine, human consciousness. We're going to be talking about her healing journey and what she's doing for people in the world with this work as well. So I'll just quickly introduce Inna. So Inna is a pioneer in the field of energy medicine and human consciousness, and the best-selling author of The Secret Language of Your Body, translated into 27 languages and with over 1 million copies sold worldwide. Her journey from illness and personal tragedy to profound self healing has led her to spend the last 25 years helping thousands transform pain into freedom. Through her books, healing card decks, and global teachings, Inna has worked with doctors, psychologists, creatives, and trauma survivors across more than 20 countries. She's also been featured on Fox, CNN, Sunrise, Channel 10, and ABC Radio. Welcome to the show today, Inna. Glad to have you on.
Thank you, Jonny. Great to be here with you.
Of course, and yeah, you're obviously up to a lot in the world, and getting your message out there and helping people, and it's really important. I feel there's quite a lot going on in the world, personally, with lots of there's some great in the world, but there's also some challenges we have. So it's great that you're out there and helping people to work through like their healing, and you've gone through your own journey as well. So I'd love first of all to hear a little bit about. I mentioned about illness and personal tragedy that's got you into some profound self healing. So yeah, I'd just like to how much you're open to just sharing a little bit about where this was, where you were, and where it's taken you to.
Thank you. Yeah, I think like a lot of people, we don't usually get into healing, especially as a profession, without some pain and suffering and struggle.
Mm,
And for me, I was born in Belarus, and we came to Australia when I was 10, and I really felt like even when I was still really young, I had already experienced some digestive issues, even ended up in the hospital with people not knowing what to do. And then when I came to Australia, I started getting psoriasis all over my elbows and knees, which is definitely something that runs in the family,
mm,
but it was very unpleasant to live with. And then I ended up in high school, and my parents wanted me to go. Obviously, they were like, "You've got to achieve something. You've got to do something with your life. You've got to do well." So they put me into a private school, and what they were not aware of was that in their experience, they came from a country that where they couldn't easily express themselves or talk about whatever was going on. And for them in Australia, there was this sense of freedom and they loved it. Whereas for me here, it was difficult. I was bullied for not speaking English well or not at all at the beginning
mm,
um, to then being, coming from quite a, let's just say, a poor background compared to the people that were going to this school. And my parents were subsidized like all the Eastern European people were. And so there was this enormous, enormous conflict that I then entered into in terms of school. And then I started to have back pain. And I noticed that several of my friends were walking around in this, kind of self-protective mode and actually started getting scoliosis. Whereas mine wasn't so much scoliosis as it was really bad low back pain and sciatica. And as I was getting older, none of these conditions were getting better. And I started getting anxiety. My mum only really believed in medicine at the time or understood medicine. So she kind of took me to all the doctors. And then I think everything exploded. You were saying there was a bit of a really challenging experience that I had when I got pregnant when I was 19, and then this child was a stillborn essentially, so died maybe 2 days, but I didn't know before he was born, which was already 8.5. I was already 8.5 months pregnant at that stage. And I had no idea. And I had no idea that it actually happened to people in Australia. So I really thought there was something very, very wrong with me. And it kind of everything in my body just exploded. I was in agony, I was in pain all the time. And I was seeing a chiropractor at this stage for about a year. And one day I wake up, and this was literally the worst pain I'd experienced, but also the day that changed my life, I think.
Mm.
And I ended up at this chiropractor's office and he heard about what happened. He came out of his office and he said, "Hey, Inna, your body is stuck." And I said, "Yeah, I know that part. What are you going to do to help me?" And he just paused for a minute. And again, I think people need to understand he had known me for a year. I was coming 3 times a week, and he could see nothing was changing, nothing was moving. And so he said to me, "I feel like your body wants to be stuck, and there's nothing I can do to help you at this point. Go home."
Mm.
Now, I think it was the most empowering thing he could have done, even though at that point I was pretty angry. I was enraged, I have to say, when I was going back home. But as I was on my way home, I made a decision which I'd never made prior to that. And the decision was, I'm going to heal myself. I don't know how, but I'm doing it. And I really felt, and I kind of understood this a lot later, that my thinking, my feeling, my will, everything inside of me was really aligned when I went home. And I essentially started by just placing my hands on my back. I was breathing into the pain, which I had not done. I had usually not breathe or hold my breath and resist, thinking that I wouldn't feel as much pain. And then I got to a place where, for whatever reason, I said, if there is something divine out there, just help me now. I wasn't really sure what I was thinking or believing at that time, because I kind of felt that having this child die was one of the worst things that happens to a human being, having that experience. But also, I didn't know where to put God, so to speak, at that point in my life. But I asked. I didn't really expect anything to happen, but I felt this warmth just move through my body. And then this other thought came into my head, and it was, I wonder what would happen if I could see into my body. And it was literally as if somebody just kind of switched something on, and I could see my back. I could see where it was inflamed. I could see where it was twisted. And not from the victim. I think probably for the first time in my life, I really, in
Mm.
terms of pain, I said, I really want to know why at this very young age I have all these physical issues. And it was very interesting because, again, as I asked, it was like memories and images of what had happened from school and being bullied, to being bullied in high school, to part of lower back is pain is feeling unsupported, as well as having a lot of financial issues. It's one of our financial areas. And for
Interesting.
me, I grew up, yeah, with my parents just constantly not having money or struggling. So it was very familiar, this type of thing. And I then saw my grandparents. I saw their ancestral part of this, because my grandfather had psoriasis, and my grandmother had a lot of digestive issues, and everybody in the family did, I have to say. And both of them had gone through the war. My grandmother, I mean, she went through enormous trauma where she was one of 8. And her mother was actually clairvoyant and said to her, and I don't know how he did that at that time, but said to her when she was 12 that the war is coming, and out of the 8 children, it would only be my grandmother who survived and also her father. And my grandmother ended up being part of the partisans. At 13, the war happened, and her mother literally died standing in front while my grandmother ran and being shot at. So just huge, huge traumas that I feel really kind of exploded when I also had my own experience of loss of the child. And I also realized I was this sponge that would just take other people's energy into myself. And, it was kind of enough for the evening to
Mm.
feel all those things and get all those insights. So I fell asleep after all of this. And it was probably, I could feel myself unwinding during the night. And in the morning, I really felt a difference. I still had pain, but it was maybe 70% less than I had. And I could feel my body was not tense and tight in the same way that it had been for years and years and years. And, when it's like that, your nervous system gets used to it, you don't even know the difference. But I really felt the difference after doing those, explorations. And for the next, I don't know, about 3 weeks, I had my journal there. I wrote down anything that came to me. I connected to my body. I asked questions. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I realized that I created a connection. I befriended my body. And by the end of these 3 weeks, I had no more back pain, and I've really never had it since. And psoriasis disappeared, anxiety came down, the digestive stuff took a lot longer, I'm going to say, and I still have to be quite conscious of what I put into my mouth.
Wow. It's quite a yeah, that's quite a journey like you went through, and yeah, like all that generational stuff you mentioned as well, contributing to your like lower back pain that had gone through, and you mentioned about financial struggle was part of that
Yeah.
as well. So this was kind of like done all by yourself, kind of just like recognizing this, or did you have guidance as well? Because I know obviously you said you were going through all these doctors and that traditional stuff just wasn't working, but was there anyone that kind of helped you on your journey to kind of this connection?
Definitely. I had a partner at the time who I met when I was 18, and he was extremely kind of open-minded to natural health and alternative health.
Mm,
So he would talk to me about it. We met in an acting class. Our acting teacher talked about it quite a lot, in terms of meditation and visualization. So I was quite familiar with doing that type of thing. It wasn't the first time I'd done it.
mm,
It wasn't a practice that I had, but I'd done in acting classes. And um, yeah, and my partner at the time, he had a lot of different books. We went to, I think, one course, maybe, but it was to do with the mind more than anything to do with the body. Um, at the time, I think, yeah, we talked about it. He took me to, I think I had gone maybe to a kinesiologist at the time. So I'd been to definitely massage, or kind of, I had been to alternative therapists, and I had spoken to them about it. So it wasn't like I'd never heard that you could heal. I just didn't know if I could,
mm.
so it was more, can I do this? Maybe these people can, but I don't know if I can. I'm And I guess I went to see them from that perspective of, they are the ones who are the experts. I just lie there and they do whatever they do, and I pay them, and that's it. I'm healed. But that's not what was happening for me. And I think it's not something that happens for a lot of people, especially now. I think people really have to participate in their own healing for it to hold.
Mm. Not rely on all these things, but yeah, that connecting to yourself and being and kind of owning that as well. It sounds like you did on your journey. It sounds like really, really connecting
Eventually.
in, Yeah, it sounds like a journey, but it's beautiful example. So, yeah, like how are you supporting others now in the world doing this? I know you're doing a large amount of work out there.
So at this point, I think with technology, and I never thought that I would be the person who would do this, but since COVID, I started doing a lot of online teaching, and it was really interesting because I had a lot of resistance to it because I kind of thought you really needed to be live to feel the energy and so on. But I was greatly surprised that a lot of the students I had were actually getting better results. And the reason they were getting better results because when you're teaching live, you kind of have to be really present. And if something's going on for you, or you've got somebody next to you maybe having an
Mm,
experience and you're too focused on them instead of yourself, you may not go as deep as you need to. But when it's online, I found that people were at home, so they were in their own comfort zone. And then, we still have support team where they can speak to, but as they would do the process, they would come back and do it again and again and again because they had the video, they had the capacity to do it again. And they started practicing it way more than people could do when they did it live because they could do so much on their own. And yeah, it was just incredible where I had one lady, she literally gained 5 centimeters in height.
wow.
Her leg, she couldn't walk when she first came to me. And when she first came to me, it was live for a 2-day workshop, and she literally wasn't able to walk. She was struggling to walk up because we had to walk up the stairs, and she said she was sweating, and she had crutches, and during the course we actually started working on ancestry, and because you mentioned ancestry, and she was able to connect to what she was carrying from her mother. And I kept saying to people, okay, come on, let's just stand. Because I really believe that standing during the process allows you to connect to your whole body and to move and to shift things a lot deeper than when you're sitting or lying down. So you can do a lot more. You can move your body, you can shake, you can take steps forward, you can feel a lot more. And so I was really encouraging her to do that. And as she connected to her mother, and it was an exercise of actually connecting to the womb and experiencing what it was like to be in the womb of her mother,
Wow.
she had this incredible release. And she said after the exercise, she could walk.
Wow.
And then she had all these other like MS and other issues that were pretty intensive. Like she had to have iron infusions, she had thyroid issues, and so on. And so she started working with me online because when I want to teach in like deeper, we actually do a 10-day course, which is what she was doing. And it's a lot easier to do it in your own space and online than it is to do it live. And so during that time, she had chronic fatigue, all of these things. I'm not saying in 10 days, but there was a huge shift in 10 days that had built on the 2 days that she'd done. And then she started practicing, practicing, practicing. And she was telling me, which I didn't even know until later, that doctors had basically said to her, get your affairs in order. Like, you can't live like this for much longer. Before she started coming and doing this work. And by the end, it was just incredible that most of the conditions she had, and I can't even name all of them because she was saying that she couldn't name all of the ones that she had when she first started, had pretty much disappeared. And it was just really, really inspiring that by people connecting to their bodies, creating a practice, how much they could do. And just countless stories from tumors disappearing with people to, migraines that they've had for years and years and years to, back pain. Lots of people with back pain, digestive issues, but just hearing these incredible stories to actually, I know your show's about confidence and self-love,
Mm,
and so many people actually came because they don't have self-love.
mm,
They had no concept when they came to the course that what they would find is that they have such lack of self-love or connection to their own bodies.
it's common.
And yeah, it's just beautiful to see. And it's beautiful that, now online, I don't have to necessarily, be in a particular country or city. And that was also that challenge. People can come from, we have so many people from the UK and from Europe and the US going through these journeys. And yeah, it is so inspiring to be able to help people in that way, and hear their stories of transformation.
There's some incredible ones there, and I'm sure there's many, many more that you're getting, and it's great to kind of like make that impact on the world. So, loved hearing that. I'd like to hear a little bit. You mentioned about some of them realizing there was maybe a lack of self-love there, or maybe self-esteem, or valuing themselves. How does like connecting with the body and like really going in, how does that help with that, do you feel?
Well, because essentially when you connect, you realize, I think this is a really great question, you
Mm,
realize that your body is your guidance system.
mm,
And when you feel depressed or anxious or lack of whatever in your life, lack of self-confidence, but also lack of abundance, lack of connection, it will show up inside your body. And so it'll often show up where your heart feels really tense and shut down, or you start to have issues with your lungs or chest or infections, asthma. You might start having digestive issues. And so when you actually connect and go, well, doesn't feel good, this area doesn't feel good, what is it about? And you start asking questions, because we really want to understand what's going on within that caused, or contributed, let's say, to the illness, or to just not feeling good, not feeling
mm,
numbed or disconnected, which is what a lot of people feel. And as we start to ask questions, and I usually say to people, when you first start to get into the body, to really connect, because most of us are in our heads, we need to move our bodies, we need to shake, right? And this is why we also do standing exercises a lot, or movement exercises. And then once we've moved and we've shaken and we've kind of awakened the circulatory and the lymphatic systems, we will then bring our attention through touch and through breath into our body, and we'll start exploring, and we'll start asking questions, and we might look at sensations and kind of really understand what they're about. But then going deeper, we'll start going, what thought pattern is this particular part of my body holding on to? What is the belief there? And
mm,
often people find that the belief is not positive. Right? The belief is, I don't like myself, or I hate myself, or this, or, just I've been hurt and I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy is one of those big ones that I'm sure
mm,
you realize and experience a lot with people, that
mm,
people have. And so once people realize how much they carry, and often from painful relationships or experiences from childhood, and when they truly start to recognize this, they go, oh my God, I'm the person, I have to work on self-love first. I can't tell you how many people do. And self-love actually means unpacking my childhood, unpacking what people said to me as I was growing up, especially the first 21 years of life, because the first 21 years is we go through a lot of cycles and parts that we then repeat. So once, I really have seen this, and I believe that once we've turned 21, we start to repeat 7 year cycles. And we kind of go, oh, I don't know why I'm 35. I don't know why I have anxiety now. And it's because you're repeating something that might have happened when you were 15. Because when you were 15, you couldn't deal with that. And you may not even remember.
Mm.
Somebody might have a conversation with you, and consciously you would go, I was fine when I was 15. I was having a great time, had a great childhood. I've heard this so many times. And then you actually hone in on it and go, oh my God, I was bullied, and I left home, and this happened and that happened. And that's why I have a wounded part of myself that is constantly self-sabotaging. And so we start to get really clear on which aspect of ourselves we need to work on to really strengthen our healthy sense of self, our healthy ego. Because people always say, oh, egotism. They don't often talk about that ego is actually your unique self. And there's a higher part of your ego that is very healthy and, well, it needs to be. It's kind of what awakens your higher self. And so when we start to love ourselves, it becomes every part of your day becomes that. It's like how you wake up, how you go to sleep, how you eat, how you communicate with people, how you dress, what processes you do during the day, or how you connect to yourself, how you communicate with yourself. People kind of go, oh my God, this sounds like a full-time job, but essentially it's you already do those things. You already eat, for instance, you already brush your teeth, you already have a shower. You just start linking self-love in a sense to, you know, let's say if I'm having a shower, rather than having negative self-talk and rushing everything, I might take more time to connect to my body. And maybe in the showers, when you ask some questions about what's going on with your body as you brush your teeth, you might take some slow, deep breaths in and actually go, let me ground and connect to my body. Let me, just connect to myself. As you eat, you might bless your food before you eat and, become more conscious of how you're eating. So you already do those things. You might choose a particular color that makes you feel more vibrant when you dress, or calmer. So, it's just self-love is so much about being conscious.
Mm. I love that. And what you were saying about you might not even realize there's like a pattern underneath, and then actually you go in, you feel the body, and it's like maybe there's a pain over my chest, and that could have been like some hurt somewhere, and I've got the belief that I'm unlovable, which is a common one as well. But yeah, just connecting to the body to get some of that narrative and understand it and work through that. I love what you described there, and so much depth. I know you've got like a workshop about guidance of your soul, or kind of you do that. I'd love to hear a little bit about what that's about and how that helps people.
Well, it's actually really interesting because one of the things that I found was that people are constantly self-sabotaging, right?
Mm,
So they're always making excuses of, why they can't get to where they need to go.
mm.
So whether it is to meet people, it's literally everything, have relationships that are healthier, um, make their
Money.
business work, have more abundance in their life,
Mm,
have more holidays, whatever it is, right? But it's like when we are younger, so many of us, and I really relate to this, we're told that anything that's creative is something is not a job, is not kind of part of what you should be doing. And our soul in itself is always guiding us towards more color, so to speak, towards more expression of ourselves, towards more creativity, towards us living as fully as we possibly can. And it's not always easy, because people think also that, if it's guidance of my soul, then everything just happens instantaneously. Well, no, the soul is here to grow and strengthen in a way that it can't in the spiritual world, from my perspective, and lots of study. And I really feel that when the soul comes down into the physical body, it comes with an intention. And the intention is to be wiser at the end of the journey than how you came here, and to, expand and grow and stretch and strengthen. And essentially, your soul wants you to have experiences that deepen it, right? And when your soul is deepened, life becomes much more fulfilling, I'm gonna say. Much more, it's like there's so much depth to it. There's so much, you know, ability for you to express and to live with all of yourself. Because I really feel like when we come, it's like we here onto this planet, we have this castle, right, with all of the capacities and abilities and talents that we have. And as we get older, we're told, oh no, don't cry, don't feel, don't do this, don't be creative. No, this is too much. Don't write, can't make money from this. And we're constantly being told that. And so when I was younger, I really, really wanted to be creative. From when I was a really young child, and I wanted to do acting, and everybody said to me, oh, you'll never make any money out of it. You can't do it in Australia. It's too hard. You have to move. You have to do all these things. And it was so overwhelming for, a 14-year-old to be told all this stuff, that I just, from that time, and I know a lot of people from 14 to 15, 16 start shutting down, because they just are told that no all the time in terms of what they want to explore, even if it's not where they want to necessarily go, because the soul is saying, hey, you could learn something from this experience, and it may not be your purpose, but it could lead you towards it.
Ooh,
And
I like that.
right. And so, for instance, from about, I think, 15 to 16, I decided, okay, not doing anything to do with acting. I'm going to do dancing just for fun, because I think I can become a dancer. And to balance out the fact that I'm struggling, like I started feeling that anxiety even more, and depression, in that sense of I can't be myself, because I couldn't be myself at school. And one day, in an actual dance class, this lady gave me a book, and it was called Born to Succeed, at 16. And so I literally opened one day. I came home and I was like, I feel like a zombie. I'm not sleeping well. I can't eat properly. I just, because this is your body and your soul's way of saying you're not on the right track. Something's really off. And as I was reflecting, I kind of went, you know what? I'm going to open the book, and I'm just going to ask that I'm going to, put my finger in any line, and whatever it says, I'm going to do. I like this type of creativity. And so I opened it, and it said, and this is where, like, again, there was a part of me that really wanted to believe in God, and another part later on was, very conflicted. But at that stage, I read this line, and it said, God wants you to do what you want to do. And to me, it was a revelation at the time, because I went, hold on a sec. My friends want to do dentistry, and I literally, like, I cannot think of anything worse than spending 8 hours looking into somebody's mouth. I'm very grateful that they're a dentist, but personally, I could never do it. And they can't think of anything worse than doing acting. So maybe I'm meant to do this. And I literally said to my mom, I need to do acting classes, and you're going to have to pay for it. And so essentially, I wouldn't be here if at that point in my life, I didn't listen and I didn't ask questions, right? And so part of what I'm teaching is for people to actually go through stages. One, the earlier stage, 0 to 7. So 0 to 7 is when you're absorbing, right? You're actually in a state of whatever your parents believe about their ability to live their purpose, to have the job that they love, to make money, you absorb. So we need to, when people feel confused and lost in terms of their purpose, we must go back to 0 to 7 first and really look at what were the beliefs, what were the patterns, like you were saying, emotions, all of those things that I took on and absorbed from my family that is unconsciously running my life. And then we're looking at 7 to 14,
Mm.
because that's when we started making a lot of decisions that, again, we don't remember, and decisions around what, whether we were going to really allow ourselves to work with our own talents and abilities, or whether we were going to suppress it and do what our family wanted us to do. And again, this is such a new thing because most people, up until maybe 30 or years ago, were basically told you're going to do this, or 40 years, it was, like, this is a good job. I know my
Mm.
mum said to me when we were having conversation at that age, she said, I really think you should become a pharmacist. And I said to her, why is that? And she said, because they make good money. And I was like, wow, that is, like, I can't, again, I think dentistry and pharmacists would be on the same level with me as the only pharmacist I could ever be is a divine one. Like, seriously, do you know me? And and it's like, because creativity is often not supported, and creativity leads to something, and we're most creative when we're from, like, again, that's 7 to 14, because now we understand more things and our sense of self starts to develop more. So we're looking at that in this particular course as well, and we're also looking at feminine and masculine sides. So the left side of your body is more feminine, that's where your heart is, and the right side where the liver is more masculine, and has been known in different medicine, like natural medicine, for a long time, thousands of years. When I say long time is what I mean. And what happens is the feminine is that creative, passionate, emotional energy that, if it's shut down, you have depression.
Mm.
Right, you live your life in a state of stress, anxiety, depression. And we, in our society, in our Western world, are not very good at nurturing and nourishing the feminine. It's like, which is about self-love, right? It's all about your internal self and self-care and confidence and all of that. So we ignore most of it. We just go toughen up. And then the right side of your body is the masculine, which is the part of you that creates, right, on the outside. And so when these parts are connected, it becomes your purpose because you connect to your heart, which is where your purpose lies. This is where it's being held, because your question is what is my why? Is my heart really, really in to what I want to create, or is it just in my head? And
Mm.
so we kind of go, so from the heart, and opening ourselves to different colors and creativity, and also working through where we were told not to, embrace our creativity or emotions or talents or abilities, or at school, or looking at our feminine line, because you can tell exactly where you're at based on who your mother, mother figure was, or what were the feminine people in those early times in your life, and what did you learn from them? What examples were they? And then you've got, and for a lot of people, their mothers were, especially people in their early 40s or 30s, they still saw their mothers as being a little bit more like slaves, as opposed to people who really connected to themselves,
Mm.
like just doing machines. And that's not feminine, right? That's not what feminine is. This is when we kind of push away and we just don't connect, right? And we just have to do and get things done. And on the masculine side, it's almost like, and this is really interesting, I've observed that those people who really do achieve, it's like, firstly, their nervous system are very expanded. They can receive. They are very good at receiving, as opposed to people who don't, and their nervous systems are very tense and small. And also those people who achieve a lot, it's almost like they have this really strong backbone, because people think, oh, success should be easy, right? They always think that, but they don't realize how much work is involved, and how to get to a place of success, you're also going to have rejection, and you're going to have times where it's not successful on the outside, because you're actually building something and you're investing, and there's a lot of investment going on into what you're building. And so they quit just before they're about to have this breakthrough. And we don't know if they would, because they just quit when it gets a little bit challenging. And so what I realized is that we have these archetypal energies of procrastinator and saboteur. And if we were taught from early on that we were not that good, not good enough, all of this, we will feed the procrastinator, which will then create this constant self-sabotaging. And that sense of masculine, where you have a really strong spine, where you have an issue and a challenge, and the masculine, especially masculine people, have this depth of vision, right? So they're not emotional in the sense of where they go, oh my God, it's hard, I'm going to quit. Whereas the feminine does do that. Oh, hard, quit. I'll do something else. So they'll just keep going, and they'll go, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to stay up till 4 a.m. figuring it out until I get it. That's the masculine in us. And so part of it is really connecting to your soul's purpose, is checking all of these aspects of yourself and working through what blocks them and what limits them, and bringing them to their optimal level, so that your feminine's working, your masculine, your heart, your why, and then your nervous system's expanded and you can receive. And then I kind of complete the teaching with working with our energy centers, with the chakras, and so we talk about manifesting through the chakras, and using an attractor archetype, which essentially, once everything's aligned, will, through the root chakra in particular, start connecting, to different people and attracting things, right? And attracting opportunities and people into your life, because you can't not when everything is aligned, right? And so it's like, once you are fully connected internally, it's very hard not to live your life's purpose, right? You really, it's like you're no longer self-sabotaging, you're no longer pulling yourself back, you're facing things, and you're willing to, be both creative and have this depth of vision, and this kind of, I'm not into thick skin idea, because I actually think when people keep saying that, it causes problems with your skin. But, and because I teach about the body, I am very careful about saying things. But I feel like having a strong spine, makes you, that's the masculine, in a sense of going, I know what I want, and I'm going to go for it no matter what. And, I'll deal with challenges as they come up. So, so I feel like really connecting to your purpose, the way that to me is most effective, is looking at all of these parts of yourself, and then aligning to really co-create. And I really do believe we are co-creators as opposed to just creators of our reality.
Wow, some real like deep work you're doing with people. I love that. And then going to things like masculine, feminine energy, super, super powerful. And yeah, receiving, I really resonate with what you said around that because something I've worked through in my own life, admittedly, like that ability to be able to receive. And I know a lot of people, even receiving compliments is, is a challenge, right? But let alone
Yeah.
abundance and money and things like that. So that sounds like really, really powerful. And yeah, I feel it's like something to do with the nervous system and what's safe and what's not, and then opening that up for more possibilities. So I love what some of the work you're doing there. So it sounds incredible for people to really dive into. Also, another point you said earlier, which I really resonated with, I thought was super interesting, was the soul sort of like journey. And actually, we like I've definitely been now. I know many people. It's like right, I've got to do the right thing that's me, and I've got to make sure I'm
Mm.
picking the right thing. But sometimes you might go on to one thing, and your soul's guiding you there, and then you actually guided onto something else, and it's actually part of that process as well. So sounds
Well,
like
exactly. And people will often say, well, I don't, my soul's saying go to an acting class or a singing class or a dancing class. I'm not going to be a singer, so I'm not going to do it. And they don't realize that it's, you know, because they need to meet someone or they need to learn something in that class or something in them will be unlocked. Had I not gone to those acting classes, no, there is no way I would be sitting here. And I'm not an actress. I didn't become that, but it was through the class I met my first partner, and he opened those doors for me to
mm,
learn and to be supported, essentially. So I wasn't with somebody who was saying, "What do you mean you're going to heal yourself? Like that's ridiculous." He was like, "Go for it, do it." You know, I'm here to support you, and we just don't know. We have no idea. And like I met somebody at an acting event. I think, I don't know, I was doing some little role, and she ended up being a great friend. And her, my partner at the time, and I ended up writing books together and doing all sorts of things that you just don't know who you're going to meet or connect with because you're willing to open the door to it. It was, I also wanted to write, and my writing career also started because I went to this acting class. And as I was listening, the teacher talked about his brother being, that his brother had written a film. And it was a film that at the time was actually being nominated for an Oscar. And at 17 at that time, I said, which was not the class that I started with, it was a different school. Um, I said to him, "Oh, can I interview your brother?" And he was like, "No, you're 17, you're at school." But I got the idea into my head, and I literally, at that time, we didn't have the interval. We had the internet, but I didn't really know how to use it. But I literally looked in the phone book to find his brother's phone number, and there was two people, and I called him up, and I was like, one will be correct. And his brother was literally on his way to LA at the time to the Oscars. And he said to me, "Okay, contact me when I come back, and we'll meet up, and we'll end up doing this interview." And that interview ended up being published in several, like in magazines, newspaper. And it gave me confidence. It
mm,
actually gave me confidence to go to university because I had a conflict with one of the teachers because of this at school, because she didn't like me doing that. And she started giving me, like kind of being in conflict with me and not giving me the grades that I deserved, and saying, which can happen at school. And this is why school years are so important to look at. And she gave me 1 mark that brought all my whole score down. And I was like, I have to go to university at the time. And, she said to me, "Well, since you don't have the marks, what are you going to do?" And I said to her, I'm going to send them the articles that I've done and they're going to let me in, even though I don't have the marks because graded me down because of your own issues. Um, I'm still going to go. Yeah. And this is what I mean by that spine. It's
Mm,
like, okay, thanks. I'll just do it my way then.
I love
And I
that.
did. Like they took me in, even though I had I think like an 81% score and they were looking at for 89. And I went, look at my work. Look at what I've done. And they went, okay, come.
That's awesome.
So, so part of it is also not, understanding that I keep saying it because people think if I have a rejection, okay, then everything falls apart, this whole sole purpose idea. And I've never thought that. In fact, when people say no to me for something, I'm just like, okay, for now, if I want this, it means that why do I want it? I want it. And I always check and I go, is it in my heart that I want it? Or is it in my head? If I want it in my heart, because somewhere on the journey I'm meant to experience it. And it's that I'm gonna back myself and I'll go, well, they're just saying no for now because, it's not yet. It's not now, but it's soon. It'll happen, And so many things happen in my life because I did that,
Mm,
even with writing books, meeting, having, publishers. I have Simon and Schuster as one of my publishers in the world who that's why I've had 27 country like languages because Simon Schuster took it on and they're one of the top 5 publishers in the world. And it's like it's just being patient and not taking no for an answer in a sense and just going, I wonder what will happen. I remember from my second book that I wrote, The Secret of Life Wellness, where I do talk about purpose in that book, I really, really wanted a forward from Michael Beckwith. And my publisher, we have the same publisher, and they said, oh, no, no, he doesn't give forwards. He doesn't give testimonials. He's not into that. And my answer to them was, okay, that's fine. He will when he meets me.
I
And
love
they were
that.
like, what? And the first time I went to America, I ended up I through Facebook, and people just don't realize Facebook had just started, literally, or not maybe just, but I discovered it. And I ended up connecting by whatever, amazing reason to Michael's best friend, which I didn't know that it was his best friend when this man contacted me. And he said to me, I want to speak in agape. And he said, why don't you speak in agape? And I was like, well, because it's like it's really hard to get to. I'm being told by everyone I'm getting blocked. And he said, oh, really? I was one of the people who co-created agape and I'm best friends with Michael. Let me talk about this. And so on the day that I got to LA from Australia, I met this man, Reverend Nirvana, and he said to me, oh, he called me and he's like, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. And the reason he was late was because he stopped by to catch up with Michael and he was talking about me to him. And 2 days later, I was at an event in Portland, Oregon with my publisher. And because I'd talked to her about it, she said, all right, I can take you into a private room where Michael is there because I know you want to speak to him. Come on, quick. And so as I was speaking, she took me to this room with Michael. And as I was talking to him, he went, oh my God, you're that healer from Australia that, Reverend Nirvana was talking to me about 2 days ago. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And he, his demeanor changed and he was like, oh my God, and we're having this amazing conversation. And then I met him again through somebody else. And eventually he went, all right, yeah, whatever you need, here's my details type of thing. And he gave me the forward for the book and and an opportunity to speak in agape. And a few years later, it wasn't instant. And I want people to have that awareness, be patient, but be open to things happening in a creative way. You don't know what you don't know.
Mm.
And if you block yourself and limit yourself before the universe can help you, then you're going to struggle. And to me, life is so creative. I never know what's going to happen today. Who am I going to connect with today? What opportunity will open up today? Every day is exciting in that way. And some days I'm not going to pretend that I don't have challenging days, but it's like, hey, what's the challenge about? Let's look within. Let's move through this. I get excited about that too, because then I'll know more about why I'm being challenged internally now. And I'd rather transform it than have it be unconscious inside of me operating. So challenges are just the same as opportunities. I mean, we prefer opportunities, but challenges can lead you to your greatest opportunities.
Mm. Love that. Yeah, and just like knowing, having that intention of what you want, it sounded like, but it's like not being like stuck or out of fear of like it has to happen this way. It's like just allowing that creative flow of the universe to deliver it to you, but having that in the back of your mind like you did. So I love that you're helping people open up to more of that and possibilities and get in more connection with themselves. So Inna, I know you are offering a lot of work. You've got your books. You're serving people many different ways. Where can the listener get in touch with you? Where's the best way for them to get in touch with you or find out about your work? And is there maybe a final point you'd like to leave us with today?
Yes. So the best way to get in touch is to go to my website, which is innasegal.com. So INNASEGAL.com. And go further than just going to the website. Actually watch one of the masterclasses.
Mm,
And the easiest one to remember is innersegal.com/masterclass. But there's several, including the one on the soul's journey
mm,
that we've just spoken about, that depends on the topic you want to explore. I have explored many topics in the last 25 years. What I would really love to leave people with is the idea of that exploration and taking action. So, what is your willingness to take step one, which could be doing a masterclass, and and in particular, the ones that I do always have processes. So then discovering something about yourself, but also the fact that you could, opening your mind and actually going, I'm going to ask, if you believe in the soul, then you believe that there is something higher, right? That there is some divinity and that the soul came from the spiritual world and there is a journey. And so actually asking for higher help and being open to it. And if I can conclude with a little story,
yeah.
when I first, I didn't want to go to the US until I had my book published, because I was like, I have to not self-sabotage. I need to go there with this really excited, open mind, because it's easy to go and say, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, and create limitations. So knowing myself, that I was like, I don't want to create any limitations. I'm going to go when the book is published, and I'm going to be, this, like, really work on myself to be receiving in an open space and an open state. And at one point, I realized I was going to so many cities that because they have guns, I really needed to have somebody in each city that could guide me, so I didn't end up going into the wrong place, where I could traumatize myself or be traumatized or hurt. So each city had, like, I spoke to my publisher and we had somebody who would help me. But in New York, I was going there with my mom, and we have relatives there. And she's, and as I was looking at what I was doing, the events that I was doing and interviews and so on, they were all in Manhattan, but my family lived on the bus 2 hours away from Manhattan. And I was thinking, this is not a good idea. I have to co-create Manhattan. I have to find a way to, find somebody who's going to guide me and understands this place. And so the way that I do these things, I was like, okay, I'm going to ask for divine help because, that has worked for me in the past. So I kept asking and asking and asking. And I was getting a feeling like things would work out, but there was nothing that was coming that was clear for me or that felt right. And so I remember my mom and I were landing in the plane in New York, and I'm thinking, hey, you up there, you know what's meant to happen, but I'm already here and nothing's happening, right? It's like, come on. And so the next day, I was like, I've got to be in a really good state and I keep saying that because you have to be in a good state to receive.
Mm.
And we were going to see my publisher and I was doing events. Um, and my mom she's not a fan of New York. It's too much for her. It's too chaotic. And so we're sitting in the bus and she was telling me all this. And I said to her, okay, my boundary is that I'm going to go and sit on the other side of the bus because I now need to delete and let go of everything you've said. And now I need to open myself to having a really good experience today. And so I did that. And I met up with my publisher and it was amazing. And she was even Australian from Simon Schuster. It was a great day. And anyway, I was doing a talk and a book signing. And I remember thinking to myself, I really need a hairdresser because I cannot keep doing it takes me so long to do my hair and to straighten. I was straightening it at the time. I need a hairdresser. And especially because I'm going on these TV shows and I'm sitting and doing signing these books. And I have this woman who's helping me. And she says to me, do you need a hairdresser by any chance? And I was like, yes, I do. She said, because I used to do Barbara Streisand's hair and all of these super famous people. She was doing their hair. And I was like, yeah, that would be great. And then she said, so where are you staying? And when I told her where I was staying, she said, oh, I live 2 blocks away. How long are you in New York for? And I said, a week. And she said, how about you come and stay with me? I'm a makeup artist and a hairdresser. I'll do your hair and makeup. I will take you around New York. I'll take you to every event that you need to go to. We'll just hang out and I'll introduce you to all these people that you want to be introduced to that are part of this industry. We all know each other. And she's like, just ask your mom if she can bring your clothes tomorrow. And you can stay here with me. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Of course, I had to spend the day, there, meet somebody who lives there who could then help me. And it was just this most amazing experience that I had with this lady. And she helped me many times at, different times when I visited. So it was just by asking. And even though I was like, why is it not happening before I came? Why is it not happening the way I think, as you're saying, the way I imagine it? Well, you don't know how it should happen. But had I been really negative throughout that day in New York, I don't think that her and I would have had that conversation.
Mm.
So you do have to be really, really open to new possibilities and opportunities as you're moving through life and actually asking questions like, how does this get better? Let me ask for extra help and then look for it and then
Mm.
receive it. So I hope that inspires some people.
I love that. Focus on the feeling good and not being in that scarcity, it sounded like as well, which is one I always picked up from kind of similar success stories from I've heard from other people as well. So love that. So Inna, thank you so much for sharing. Make sure you check out Inna's website, her masterclass. She's got a range of great masterclasses that we're going to link in the show notes below. But Inna, a massive thank you for everything you shared today and the work you're doing in the world.
Thank you, Jonny.
Thank you. So that concludes today's episode. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.